वेलकम टू यूपीएससी एक्सप्रेस सीरीज बाय VicThree IAS। मैं हूं अनमोल शर्मा और इस वीडियो में हम कंप्लीट टॉपिक कवर करेंगे एक ही शॉट में। दिस विल बी अ क्विक एंड फोकस्ड लेसन विदाउट वेस्टिंग टाइम। वीडियो के एंड तक यू विल हैव कंप्लीट कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी एंड एवरीथिंग यू नीड about the topic for the exam. वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में you can find the complete notes of the topic and watch this video along with the notes. Also join the Telegram channel of VicThree IAS for schedule, notes and other study material. Subscribe to the channel and follow us on Instagram. तो चलो शुरू करते हैं. So now we'll talk about post-Mauryas. What was the political situation in India after the fall of Mauryan dynasty? So this is the map of India, and here were the Indo-Greeks. Indo-Greeks were the military generals of Alexander the Great. When he came to India, he did not invade India, he went back and eventually he died. He left his military generals at the border, at the Indian border, and this is where they settled, and they were called Indo-Greeks because they mixed with the indigenous population. तो Indian population जो वहाँ थी उसके साथ mix होके Indo-Greek population बनी, and वो नॉर्थ वेस्ट टूवर्ड्स अफगानिस्तान पाकिस्तान बॉर्डर पे सेटल हो गए. राइट. सो इन 3rd century BC चाइना में एक ग्रेट डेवलपमेंट होता है. ग्रेट डेवलपमेंट टेक्स प्लेस इन चाइना. शी हुआंगटी, a king in China, he makes a wall called the Great Wall of China to protect from invaders in the Central Asia. So they were nomadic invaders in Central Asia. To protect his kingdom, Chinese kingdom, from the invaders, he creates Great Wall of China. Here we have a nomadic tribe called Yuchis. Yuchis used to invade into China and used to loot or conquer certain territories. But after the formation of Great Wall of China, they had nowhere to go but come towards India. But on the way, there was another clan called Sakas. Yuchis pushed southwards towards the Saka territory, and Saka had to put further southwards to Indo-Greeks. So they pushed each other, and Indo-Greeks finally entered India because they had to fight Sakas, and in the fight they had to escape and enter India, and that led to the coming up of Indo-Greeks into India and the post-Mauryan dynasties in India. So Yuchis could not enter China because of Great Wall of China. They pushed Sakas. Sakas pushed Indo-Greeks, and Indo-Greeks entered India. And what was the situation like in India? After the fall of Mauryan Empire, we studied that Shunga Empire was here in India, and Shunga Empire was succeeded by Kanva dynasty. And here in the south we had Satavahanas. So here in this map you can see the Yuchis pushing the Saka tribes, Sakas pushing the Indo-Greeks, and here where the Indo-Greeks were, they pushed into India. And India, you can see the Shungas, and Shungas were succeeded by Kanvas for a short period of time. And here in the Deccan or the central part of India, we had Satavahanas, and Chedi dynasty was also here in the Odisha, Bengal area. So Chedi dynasty was here. That was led by Mahameghawahanas of Chedi dynasties, Satavahanas, Shungas and Kanvas. And we had the first to enter India then were the Indo-Greeks, followed by Sakas. Then certain Sakas, they decided to stay back in Parthia. So Parthia was their capital in the Central Asia. So certain Sakas, they entered India, rest of them stayed back in Parthia, and they were called Parthians. So Sakas were followed by Parthians, and Parthians were followed by Yuchis. So Yuchis were the last to come in India. They were the last post-Mauryan dynasty to enter India. So I hope you understood the chain of events that took place. Now we'll discuss these one by one. Now talking first about the Indo-Greeks, that were the first one to enter India. First, one thing we need to keep in mind here is the historical records are not very consistent. Historical records are not consistent, they are not very proper. कुछ किंग्स के बारे में हमें पता है, कुछ किंग्स के बारे में हमें नहीं पता. तो we will only be discussing the major kings जिनके बारे में हमें पता है, right? So Indo-Greeks were also called Yavanas, right? So the major kings were Demetrius. He is considered to be the first prominent king to have ruled in India. Then came Milinda or Meander. His capital was at Sialkot. So Sialkot जो पंजाब में है, पाकिस्तान पंजाब में है, वो इसकी कैपिटल थी. तो now you know कि कौन से एरिया में they were located. Another key point is he converted to Buddhism by a Buddhist monk called Nagasena, and this is recorded in Milinda Pahanu book. So this is the book in which this book talks about the king Milinda of Indo-Greeks. Then the last important king under the Indo-Greeks is Antialcidas or Antialcidas. He sent an ambassador, Heliodorus, to Vidisha, to the Indian state of Vidisha. So these are some factual information. These were the three prominent kings related to Indo-Greeks, and as I told you, the historical records are not very proper. बहुत थोड़ी थोड़ी इंफॉर्मेशन है, उसी के बेस पे हम स्टडी करेंगे, ज़्यादा कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन है नहीं. नेक्स्ट टू कम वर, as we discussed, Sakas. So Sakas, as we discussed, they migrated from Central Asia and they replaced Indo-Greeks in India. Sakas were present in 5 important branches in India. अफगानिस्तान में थे, पंजाब में they were settled, मथुरा, Deccan or Central India, and around Maharashtra region. So these were the 5 clans of Sakas in different regions of India. One thing to remember here is, जैसे कि हमने देखा Mauryan Empire में there was an elaborate machinery, like there were provinces, then we had districts, then we had intermediary level, then we had villages, right? तो proper एक hierarchy थी. Sakas, since they were nomadic tribe, they did not have any elaborate administrative system. उन्होंने क्या किया था, जो पूरा एरिया है उसको डिवाइड कर दिया था into certain parcels, and उसको बोलते थे, each part was called महाक्षत्रप, बड़े डिवीजन को, and that was placed under a military governor. तो एक मिलिट्री गवर्नर के अंदर एक एरिया दे दिया था, and he was responsible for the complete administration of that particular region that was called Mahashatrap, and he was pretty autonomous in that region. He could rule however he wanted, but again he was under the sovereignty of the king. So Mahashatrap system tha not very elaborate. Mahashatraps further had divisions called Shatraps, right? And this was called the Satrap system, और या फिर Satrap system बोलते थे of governance. So if the question comes, Satrap system was introduced by who? Then it was the Sakas, right? So another important point about them was they introduced coins in India. But you will ask, sir, coins तो महाजनपद के टाइम पे ही सही थे, but they were the first ones to introduce gold coins, and that too of numerical value. तो अब पहले जो थे गोल्ड कॉइन की कोई न्यूमेरिक वैल्यू नहीं थी, मतलब 1 रुपए का सिक्का, 2 रुपए का सिक्का नहीं होता, वो गोल्ड कॉइन था, मतलब उसकी गोल्ड की वर्थ थी. नाउ द कॉइन्स हैड न्यूमेरिकल वैल्यू, जैसे कि आज की डेट में है. सो gold coins or of numeric value, contribution of Indo-Greeks to India. Another important point is they started Gandhara School of Art. Gandhara School of Art, ये हम ancient उसमें पढ़ेंगे आर्ट एंड कल्चर में. गंधारा स्कूल और हेलेनिस्टिक स्कूल भी बोलते हैं उसको, हेलेनिस्टिक स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट. was started by Indo-Greeks. So these were the important points related to Sakas. Sorry, it was started by basically Sakas and Indo-Greeks. It was pretty fluid. Coins of numeric value were introduced by Indo-Greeks, but were then further continued by Sakas. So these two were the major contribution of post-Mauryas or Indo-Greeks followed by Sakas. So now we'll talk about the most important ruler of Sakas, that is Rudra Daman I. Rudra Daman I is the only prominent ruler of Sakas. He ruled around the area of Sindh, Malwa, so central India and towards Pakistan side. One famous inscription is the Junagadh rock inscription is attributed to Rudradaman of Sakas, and he was the first ruler, post-Mauryan ruler, to use Sanskrit as the court language. So he used Sanskrit as the court language. That means these foreign rulers, they were getting Indianized now. Okay, और Sakas or Satwanas were in constant warfare with each other. So Satwahanas जो भी हमने देखे थे सेंट्रल एशिया में रूलर्स थे पोस्ट मॉरियन, so they fought with each other consistently. So we'll study about it under Satwahanas. Sakas के बाद आए साका, पहवा और पार्थियंस. Parthians or Saka Pehwas, these are the people who stayed back in Parthia, right, and then were finally pushed by Yuchis and they entered India after Sakas. So they were a clan of Sakas only. There is only one important ruler, that is King Gondopharnes, and he is important because it was during his time that Christianity entered India. So he is linked with Saint Thomas, who brought Christianity, introduced Christianity to India, right? And nothing else is important. Now comes the most important dynasties that finally came in to India were the Yuchis or Kushans. So these Kushans had a very huge empire and they spread in India. They ruled from Oxus River, that was somewhere over here, to Patliputra. So you can see the expanse of their kingdom. And Kushans had two capitals. One was Purushapura, also known as Peshawar today, and the other one was Patliputra. My bad, the other one was Mathura. So second capital was Mathura, first capital was Purushapura or Peshawar. It was not Patliputra. Patliputra was the capital of Shungas and Kanwas. We'll study about them later. So it started with Kujula Cadphises. He was the first ruler, followed by Vima Cadphises, but they are not very relevant. Then he was succeeded by one of the greatest post-Mauryan ruler, that was Kanishka. Right, and Kanishka, he hosted fourth Buddhist council. We studied under Buddhism. He hosted fourth Buddhist council. He is credited with the rise of Mahayana Buddhism in India, or even the creation of Mahayana Buddhism, the sect of Buddhism that does idol worship, and he issued multiple gold coins in India. And his coins had images of Shivji and Buddha, Nandi and Buddha. So they had two on both the sides of the coin. On one side it had Buddha, on the other side it was some Hindu deity like Shivji, Nandi, right? So two-faced coins and with Hindu and Buddhist icons on the coins. So now we'll discuss the impact of Central Asian contact. What was the impact of these Central Asian dynasties coming to India? क्या changes आए India में with the coming up of these dynasties? So in four major ways changes were there, starting with militarily. जो ये Central Asian dynasties थी like Kushans, Indo-Greeks, they brought advanced cavalry to India. इंडिया में अभी तक एलिफेंट्री ज़्यादा चलती थी, बट एडवांस्ड कैवलरी मतलब हॉर्सेस horseback fighting was introduced by them. They were experts in riding horses. तभी Central Asia में horse warfare ज़्यादा चलता है, तो they brought advanced cavalry, and with advanced cavalry they brought saddles, जो कि घोड़ों पे चढ़ने के लिए saddles यूज होते हैं, reins जो जिससे खींचते हैं घोड़े को, एंड स्टिरप्स, जो कि ऑल दीज थिंग्स वर नॉट प्रेजेंट इन इंडिया. बहुत एक प्रिमिटिव फॉर्म ऑफ हॉर्स राइडिंग होती थी, बट विद द हेल्प ऑफ दीज इम्प्लीमेंट्स इंट्रोड्यूस्ड बाय द पोस्ट मौर्यंस, that led to advancement in warfare, military warfare. And also, particularly Kushans, they brought trousers, boots, leather, use of leather, extensive use of leather started with Kushans. तो ये सब militarily changes आए इंडिया में. Talking about socio-religious changes, that was the biggest element. So basically, जब ये Central Asian nomads, Central Asian dynasties, when they entered India, they did not have a religion of their own. They were nomads, sometimes do nature worship, otherwise they had no particular religion of their own. When they came to India, in India, we know that there was a strict caste or varna system in India, right? So where do these people settle, or where do these people fit in? Even though they were warriors, Kshatriya ka इनको मिलना चाहिए था status, they should have got the status of Kshatriya, but since they were foreigners and Kshatriya was an upper caste or upper varna, they were not given status of Kshatriya, but they were given the status of Vratya Kshatriya. Vratya Kshatriya was basically Kshatriya, that means fallen Kshatriya. That means it was basically एक downgraded version of a Kshatriya, or अनिर्वासिता Shudra. That means with some modification to the existing caste, they were basically accepted within the Indian society. And that is why most of them shifted to other religions like Buddhism. We'll discuss further. But again, the post-Mauryan society was not orthodox at all because of the influx of foreigners. जो foreigners आ रहे थे, they were bringing their culture and they were making changes to the वो जो इंडिया में existing caste और वर्ना system था, उसमें changes ला रहे थे. And most of the rulers वर्ना system में fit नहीं हो पाए, so they moved towards Buddhism. They saw Buddhism as an entry into India, right? And another thing was, these foreigners, when they entered India, they mixed with the Indian population, and that led to an increase in intercaste, intervarna marriages. Foreigners marrying Indians, and एक बहुत ही mixed caste society start हुई इंडिया में with the coming of post Mauryas. And another change was, people started to be recognized or started using the professions in their names rather than using their caste. So caste receded in this period and profession started to be used as names. नाम के साथ वो अपना profession लगाते थे rather than अपना caste या surname. So these were the socio-religious changes brought by the post-Mauryas. So talking about trade, post-Mauryan era was the golden period for trade. Trade during this period boomed like anything. बहुत ज़्यादा grow हुआ था trade during this period. So basically एक silk road थी, जो कि silk चाइना से लेके रोमन एम्पायर तक जाता था silk, and one of the routes used to pass through India. As you can see over here, it passed through India, it passed through these particular cities, and India became the intermediary here. And since India was the intermediary, India took great advantage of the silk trade going on between China and Roman Empire, and hence the trade activities expanded in India. And because of expansion of trade, this led to the growing importance of guilds in India. Guilds were like groups of merchants for a particular trade. So there were different guilds for different trades, like cloth guilds, silk guild, or guilds for horse trade, and different guilds looking after their particular economic activity or particular trade. Now these guilds became very important, so important कि ये multiple functions undertake करने लग गए, that they used to take commercial function, commercial activities करते थे, जैसे कि interest अपने merchants का protect करना, fixing prices of goods, checking the standard of quality that was produced or that was traded. On top of that, financial activities also they used to undertake, that means giving of loans, even minting of coins. Guilds, some guilds had their own coins, right? And also religious functions they used to undertake, like religious donations dena hai to particular monks, or khana dena hai. So religious functions of donations also were undertaken by the guilds. So guilds played a very important role in post-modern society and even later. So now we saw that trade was booming. For what reason? Because of the Silk Road, that India was the intermediary in the Silk Route, and that led to the formation of guilds, and guilds played a very important role. Some guilds even had their own army to protect their interests. There were certain urban centers that emerged that specialized in certain craft, like Ujjain. Ujjain was specialist in bead making, so it became the bead making center. Vidisha became the center for ivory works. Ivory comes from the tusk of elephant. So ivory works was famous in Vidisha, and Mathura was famous for a special cloth called Shataka. So these were, this can also come in the exam. What center or what city was famous for which craft activity during post Mauryas? Right. So this was all about trade. Now coming to the impact on technology. So there were developments in India in the fields of astronomy. They were all brought by the Indo-Greeks and other Greeks. Astrology, as we read, currency started developing in India with numerical value. Glass making was introduced in India during post-Mauryas or with the Central Asian contact, right? And in this particular period, as we mentioned, Buddhism flourished because many kings, they saw they seeked entry into India through Buddhism, so that they avoided the rigid caste system that prevailed in ancient India. So Buddhism expanded and Buddhism grew due to royal patronage, got royal patronage, the biggest patron being Kanishka during post-Mauryan period. So this was the impact of Central Asia or the post-Mauryas that came into India. Now we'll discuss the Indian empires that were present in India after the Mauryas, or that were there when these Central Asian dynasties attacked. And now we will be studying about the Shungas or the Shunga dynasty. We studied under Mauryas. Last Mauryan ruler Brihadratha was killed by his minister Pushyamitra Sunga that established the Shunga dynasty. And this saw a shift from Mauryan central authority. हमने पढ़ा था कि मौर्य एक highly centralized empire था. So Mauryan central authority से shift होके मल्टीपल रीजनल डायनेस्टीज बन गई थी. मल्टीपल रीजनल डायनेस्टीज मतलब एक ऑल इंडिया लेवल पे डायनेस्टी नहीं थी, जस्ट लाइक मौर्यन डायनेस्टी, इट वाज मल्टीपल छोटी छोटी डायनेस्टीज that succeeded Mauryan Empire. Like you can have a look over here. Shunga dynasty was formed in the north, and central India had Satavahanas, and here in the east we had Chedi dynasty. So multiple regional dynasties were formed after the breakdown of Mauryan Empire, right? So Pushyamitra Sunga was the founder of Sunga dynasty. His capital was Patliputra only, right? Patliputra, that was the same capital as of Mauryans. His son was Agnimitra Sunga. So Agnimitra Sunga was his son, but he shifted his capital to Vidisha. Vidisha became the capital under Agnimitra Sunga. And here one thing to keep in mind is that the Sungas repeatedly fought and repelled Indo-Greeks. So it was the same time Indo-Greeks had entered India. So Sungas repeatedly fought, were in complete warfare with the Indo-Greeks, right? As you can see over here, Indo-Greeks were coming from here and we had Sunga dynasty here. And Sungas patronized Brahmanism. So they were basically followers of Brahmanism, and hence they performed many Brahmin rituals like Ashwamedha. So it's one of the major horse sacrifice ritual. And it is said that since they were Brahmins, they persecuted या फिर जो persecuted Buddhists या फिर जो बुद्धिस्ट को इनकी ट्रीटमेंट ठीक नहीं रही, मतलब दे किल्ड बुद्धिस्ट, इन्होंने अपने एरिया से बुद्धिस्ट को भगा दिया, ये वो मतलब ये सब बोला जाता है. बट इनफैक्ट historians say that that is not true. In fact, they repaired and built stupas like Sanchi stupa, बरहुत स्तूपा. तो ये सारे स्तूपास के बिल्डिंग और रिपेयर में रिकॉर्ड शो दैट दे एक्चुअली रिपेयर्ड. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि दे परसिक्यूटेड बुद्धिस्ट. सो दिस इज अ कॉमन बिलीफ बट हिस्टोरियन से अदरवाइज. एंड an important text of this time is Malvika Agnimitram. So this was written by Kalidas and it is based upon Agnimitra Sunga, son of Pushyamitra Sunga, marrying a slave girl Malvika. So this is Malvika Agnimitram about Agnimitra Sunga. Right, these were the two major kings. Other kings are not very important. And Sunga dynasty was succeeded by Kanwa dynasty. Kanwa dynasty, but it was much smaller in size. Founder was Vasudev Kanwa, and this dynasty was only centered around Patliputra. So only around Patliputra they ruled, and the empire shrunk from Shunga's time, right? So Patliputra and the Magad area that was there, they ruled over that area only. And eventually they were succeeded by Satavahanas. Satavahanas, as we saw in the map, ruled over central India. So these were Satavahanas, and now we'll take Satavahanas next. So talking about Satavahanas, Satavahanas ruled from 1st century BC, 1st century BCE to 3rd century BCE. Post Mauryas. The founder was Simuka. So Simuka was the founder of Satavahanas, and the capital of Satavahanas was Pratishthan. Pratishthan was in central India. So Pratishthan was the primary capital, and secondary capital was Amravati. Right. Talking about the prominent rulers, one prominent ruler is GPS, Gautami Putra Satkarni. Right. So GPS is a prominent ruler, and GPS defeated Sakas. Under Sakas, we studied that Sakas were under constant warfare. Sakas Satavahanas के साथ war पे थे for the longest time. So GPS was the one who defeated Sakas, and GPS also revived Vedic traditions, जो कि under Buddhist rule and post Mauryan rule decline हो गया था. It was revived by Gautami Putra Satkarni. So one thing you might have noticed here is Gautami Putra he is putting in his name. That means Satavahanas were matrilineal. Matrilineal means they consider the ancestry from the mother side. जैसे कि पैट्रीलिनियल में हम अपने फादर साइड का जैसे सरनेम फादर का लगाते हैं और जो एंसेस्ट्री है वो फादर साइड से देखते हैं. मैट्रीलिनियल में मदर साइड से एंसेस्ट्री देखते हैं और मदर का नेम लगाते हैं अपने नाम के आगे. सो गौतमी बालाश्री वाज जीपीएस, मदर ऑफ जीपीएस. सो गौतमी पुत्र सन ऑफ गौतमी सतकारनी, राइट. सो दिस इज एन important point. Satavahanas were matrilineal, and after GPS an important ruler was Yajnashri Satkarni. Yajnashri Satkarni, he was also a strong ruler. Now we talk about the administration of Satavahanas. The kingdom was divided into districts called Ahara. right? And one very important aspect of Satavahanas is they started the system of land grants or feudalism. See, हमने मौर्य के अंडर देखा था कि मौर्यंस वर हाईली सेंट्रलाइज्ड एम्पायर था, सेंट्रलाइज्ड उनकी पॉलिटी थी इन अ वे कि all land was held by the king, and the king had final authority over say law and order or administration or every aspect of the society the king controlled at the center. But यहाँ पे हमने देखा है कि एक element of decentralization started in post Mauryas, where the king gave away lands to certain sections like traders, guilds, ब्राह्मण्स, प्रीस्ट, इन सबको लैंड देते था, एंड these people had complete authority over that land. मतलब they could have their own law and order, ये अपना law and order उस लैंड में चला सकते थे. they could collect tax collect कर सकते थे, right? and they could undertake public works. तो उस particular land में they had a high level of autonomy, so that led to decentralization of empire. And basically land grants were given for say in lieu of salary. सोल्जर या हाई रैंकिंग मिलिट्री ऑफिशियल को कैश में सैलरी ना पे करते हुए लैंड ग्रांट दे दिया कि ये लैंड तेरा है, एंड वट एवर मनी यू गेट आउट ऑफ इट विल बी योर सैलरी. प्रीस्ट्स को दे दिया इन रिटर्न ऑफ देयर ड्यूटी कि तुम हमारे लिए पूजा यज्ञ करते हो, यू टेक द लैंड ग्रांट्स. सो ऐसे ही पार्ट ऑफ लैंड बांटे गए थे, एंड दैट लेड टू डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन एंड फ्यूडलिज्म, एंड दिस विल कंटिन्यू. And it was in opposition or very much different from the Mauryan system where it was highly centralized. All right, so ये important point है. The system of land grant started under Satavahanas, right? So basically this was the whole Satavahana dynasty or Satavahana empire, as you can see. And a large scale maritime trade या फिर समुद्र से जो ट्रेड होता है थ्रू द ओशन और सी रूट्स, दैट वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ड्यूरिंग सतवाहनास. एंड वी कैन सी मेनी पोर्ट टाउन्स ओवर हियर, जैसे कि सोपारा, भरूच. So these were the two important port towns of Satavahanas. And here we can see the first capital Pratishthan and second capital Amravati. Right, so this was the area of Satavahanas, and they had important maritime trade through the seaports of Bharuch and Sopara. And Bharuch and Sopara से mostly रोमन एम्पायर, रोमन्स के साथ ट्रेड था. देन जो इनके पोर्ट्स थे ऑन द ईस्टर्न साइड ट्रेड होता था साउथ ईस्ट एशिया से, जो कि मलेशिया, इंडोनेशिया और थाईलैंड और ये सब जो एरियाज है साउथ ईस्ट एशिया, वो ईस्ट वाले पोर्ट्स करते थे और वेस्ट वाले पोर्ट्स रोमन एम्पायर के साथ ट्रेड करते थे. सो दे हैड ट्रेड विद बोथ द साइड्स. वन इम्पोर्टेंट point here is they had large scale lead coins. Gold silver coins तो थे ही, but large scale lead coins made of lead were under use under Satavahanas, and that is why sometimes Satavahanas को dark ages भी बोलते हैं because of the color of the coins. कई बार गलत बोला जाता है कि ये डार्क एजेस इसलिए है क्योंकि पुअर हो गया था, गोल्ड सिल्वर अफोर्ड नहीं कर पाता था, तभी लेड पे आया. बट दैट इज नॉट द केस. लेड उनका इस एरिया में लेड बहुत मिलता था, दैट इज व्हाई दे इंट्रोड्यूस्ड लेड कॉइन्स, and for that reason it was called dark ages. But trade was booming and the empire was rich. Other important points that we'll cover in detail under art and culture is certain art centers, schools of art were introduced by Satavahanas. जैसे कि अमरावती स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट, एक नागार्जुन कोंडा स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट है यहीं पे, तो वो भी it was started by Satavahanas. And Satavahanas were patrons of Ajanta Ellora cave art. So Ajanta Ellora caves were patronized by Satavahanas only. So culturally it was a flourishing empire, and they patronized, when we talk about the religion, they patronized both Brahmanism and Buddhism. In fact जो ये अमरावती and नागार्जुन कोंडा स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट है, that was related to Buddhism only. More details you will find in the notes in the description box, so do check it out. Right, so now we'll be taking the last dynasty of the post Mauryas, that is the Chedi dynasty. So So Chedi dynasty, basically when Ashoka conquered Kalinga, the area of Odisha because of the Kalinga war was completely damaged. बहुत large scale damage हुआ था उड़ीसा एरिया को during Ashoka and Kalinga war. और Kalinga war के बाद revival of Odisha was done by a king called Mahameghavan. So Mahameghavan एक king था after the Kalinga war. He undertook the revival of Odisha region and he was the founder of Chedi dynasty. Right. Basically, he was not a ruler, but Mahameghavans were the rulers. So Mahameghavans were the group of rulers. Just like we have Satavahanas, similarly, Mahameghavan were the rulers of Chedi dynasty. It was name of a family. And the name of that particular king, the most prominent king was Kharavela. So you might have heard King Kharavela of Odisha of Chedi dynasty. He was one particular ruler of Mahameghavan's dynasty of Chedi. So, talking about King Kharavela, he was a very strong ruler and he had a very strong military. He he expanded the empire in the northwest and south as well. So, from Odisha, he expanded to south and northwest as well under his rule through military conquests. He defeated Satavahanas, he defeated the Indo-Greeks, the post-Mauryans that were coming, and even invaded Magadha. Right, from the northwest, Indo-Greeks, south he defeated Satavahanas, and in the north he even invaded Magad. Right, so he was a strong ruler and he had a strong navy as well, बहुत strong navy थी and close contacts and trade थे श्रीलंका के साथ, म्यांमार, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया जैसे कि इंडोनेशिया, यहाँ से एक मैरीटाइम ट्रेड एंड कॉन्टैक्ट लिंक्स थे किंग खारवेला के. One important point to keep in mind is King Kharavela was Jain, so he promoted Jainism, and Hathi Gumpha caves is an important caves, Hathi Gumpha caves, that's related to King Kharavela only. So this is about the Chedi dynasty, Megavahanas of Kalinga. And that concludes our discussion of post-Mauryas. I hope the whole concept and different dynasties were clear to you. You can refer to the notes for complete details.